I was sitting in here for the previous 2 sessions, and if you happen to be here, so you heard great stories. You also know quite a few use cases, the professional use cases in Europe, in UK, and which is built upon APIs. But you will say, hey, those are all for developers who develop the systems or the process using Workbench. But I am a system admin. I'm responsible for server provision. What's in it for me in API? Or is there a role for API in this process? And you will also say, hey, as a system admin, I'm not really a coder, a developer. How can I leverage API to help my life easier for deployment? So I will share my story here a little bit. Well, talking about server provisioning and the most basic part of it, you will say, hey, roles and users and role policies and shared resources and maybe number of engines and things of that nature. So the story came from my participation in Arizona's E911 data aggregation project. So in the state of Arizona, we have 3 million around address points. We have 17 communities. They all feed their data into a centralized location, but they all have different schemas and with varying level of data quality. And as a state, trying to aggregate them together. So we have to respect the individual data qualities and schemas and trying to separate them into different compartments to trying to achieve the common data quality and aggregation to a common data set. So we have made such a design, say at the state level, we will have a admin user and role, and also a NG911 folder. For each community, will have its own user and roles. In addition, will resource folder to have under the 911 folder to have the updated data and configuration files. So this is kind of the setup in the for the server. So in a nutshell, and this would be our sample of some of the different levels of username and roles and a few things, and then the resource folders, their structure. So to start with, I was really depressed because manually clicking and typing through the web UI, it takes a lot of time, right? It's error-prone. It's time-consuming. Think about test, dev, and production servers, provisioning. And it's boring. One of the reasons we like FME is automation. We want everything to be done consistently and safe. Okay, and furthermore, you understand, with dealing with some of the government agencies, the requirements can change any time. And think about you manually done something and you have, next day or next week, you might have to change it. So that would be miserable. So I think I was determined. We like to find a process that's repeatable, can be automated, and it's fun. And here comes in RESTful API. No translation. In fact, this is Swagger documentation, which is directly exposed to your own instance of FME server instance. So essentially the way to get to this page is, so you have your server, and under help, developer, I think this is API. So click over here, then the second one is API. Yeah, I think, yeah. This is where the API. See, it's categorized by security, licensing, and migration, and a few other things. So on the security, here you have the get to receive all the user accounts, post to create new users. Okay, so so the key here is use FME Server's REST API in a fashion that's easily scripted, because we're not developers. We don't like to handle pretty complicated logic or remember all those syntax, and can be cleanly documented, can be conveniently changed and updated, and also naturally standardized. Sounds like high call, right? And this can be done. And let's first start out how to make API call in a very simple, non-programming way. And the easiest way, think about this, if you like to get, oh, by the way, this is my server, so don't spam on it, okay? I have this port open just for this purpose. Otherwise, I have to VPN kind of like tricky, so I just made this port open. It's not good practice. But anyway, so you can actually click on this, and you will get something. Of course, it will ask you for your name authentication, because we're using the standard authentication in this case. And I can type in and what have you. But you say, hey, we do not, of course, for automation, we couldn't enter anything. So what you can do is coming back, the second one, you embed a token. So if I do right now here, and it will still ask me because that's been expired. The token has been expired. So how can we get a token that's working? And this is what you do. Come over here and click on Manage Token. Then, typical token is, it will say 30 minutes. You can change it to how long is up to maybe 2 years. Longest. So I'm going to use this token. So once you have this token, and I'm actually going here, so I am going to change token. Aha, I do not know why. It's, maybe I need to do this. Okay. Anyway, if this token is right, it will go directly to the call. Of course, you will say, we are calling from a browser, but browser is not really something we can do automation, right? You can still type in. So what we could do, the next thing is using curl. Hey, bicep curl is very powerful. And you can try this one even without anything. Let's see, how do we try this? Let's do cut and paste of this. Oh gosh, I think I need to in this mode before I can cut and paste. So I'm copying this line and open a terminal. Then just typing, just paste it. So it essentially gets the curl, the content of it. Essentially, we can use a script to drive this process. Okay, so very simple. And the other pattern here, let me go back to presentation mode. And this is a get method. So you identify a header and with token specification, then this is your URL. Say, I would like to know the basic information for this web service call. And another variation is you can actually, by default, is the application JSON being the header style, so you can ignore that. So you make your line a little bit easier. And furthermore, you can put the token as part of the query string. In this case, question mark token. This way, you can further reduce it. So you can reduce your typing further. So you can run this on any script to get information. But for server provision, we are not interested in getting information mostly. We want to create new roles, new users, right? But this pattern shows how we can do that. Okay, then you will say, how do we test whether a curl command works or not? And one of the ways to do is using a Postman. How many of you have ever used Postman? Great, you guys are all pro. I didn't have to go through that much in detail. But using it, you can testing, you Node API Swagger documentation, you have this Postman. The combination of this allows you to experiment all those different rows and policies and set up. Once it's right, then you're ready to do scripting. And I think scripting is, as I mentioned, scripting is not like coding, so it's simpler. And essentially, you're repeating the same command, just cut and paste, same command, having the same pattern. So it's important to identify the pattern in our case. The first is curl as a command. Then you identify the method. So methods start with dash big X, and you get, post, delete, put. So most likely for our server provisioning, we'll use post, delete, or put. And there's option for D, which is required if you're using post, delete, or put method. Okay. Then the path with query string. The path would be always pointing to your own instance of server, and with a v3 of API, REST API v3 in this case, and we'll do it. And this is where Excel comes in play. Okay, and think about this. This is just a portion of the spreadsheet, which later I will show you. So I would specify, say, hey, the root path is this. This should be actually v3, because I started out as v2 earlier. And you identify the rows, and these are the subsections under this, and accounts. So if I'm creating rows, I will be using rows /. If I'm creating account section, will be account /. Then I identify the token that's still active. Then you use whatever the method. In my case, here we are creating, so these would be all post methods. And by identifying in here, everything's blue are subject to changes. You can make modifications, change to yours. And then the commands. These are the commands automatically generated because we are using formulas to generate them. The reason I can do that because they are so consistent in a pattern. So by doing this, you can create hundreds of users by just dragging your mouse down. And here's, in fact, real quickly, is a few tabs of my spreadsheet. And maybe I can, I don't even see it right here. Okay, let me zoom this out a little bit more. So yeah, here is security configuration tab. What I have is the names of the county. Again, blue indicating the ones I might change, because as I expect, the state government will change their requirements oftentimes. So I can change this to anything, and then let's say E911-2, then this jurisdiction folder name, because I have a folder identified, is automatically changed. And this change, the row name, suffix, these are all standardized. So row name and so these are all the formulas. If you over into use concatenation, making sure the lowercase I have underscores, separate them out. And then this portion is to create resource folders for access summaries. Again, these are some of the definitions. Then these are the configuration files, which will be later using for the FME Server configuration DXT file. And this is another way to generate a standardized resource folder for use in the configuration file. Yeah, so this will be the generated thing over here. And it is also a nice way to document your design or configuration. So this tab is talking about, earlier I showed portion of this tab, and in fact, I'm going to change this to V3 here. That was the old one. And you will notice all this being changed. So this will be the complete command. And this completed command, what I can do, I would just copy them and paste into a text file. Then text file being, in my case, being in a Bourne shell, B shell, and in other case could be PowerShell or just batch file. And you can run it against your system to generate your users. And the result of this, I don't have to do new token. So if I blow this up a little bit. So securities, where's securities? Here, yeah. So you see here the users, Cochise and Coconino, and there should, yeah. So these users and also rows, those are all created directly using the script, which is backed behind of your documentation, which also generates all this script. So this is kind of what I'm sharing through my own experimentation of leveraging the great world of connected with API. Yeah. So in summary, FME RESTful APIs can be helpful in server provisioning. RESTful API can be used with little coding or no coding or just simple scripting. RESTful API testing tools are handy. There are quite few ones out there other than Postman. And Spreadsheet helps documentation and code generation. So. Any questions? Yes. Yeah, absolutely. You could do that, but I think using Spreadsheet really generate a curl has more flexibility. It's simpler, and the other thing is really documented. All those codes it's automatically. If you want to add user, you just pull down, and the standardization is easier to manage, right? You want all the username have a prefix, a suffix of user. Row have suffix of ROL or ROLE, and that's very easy to change. And you can obliterate them using a delete method in the future and replace them with what I have used. So it's very simple and easy. I think it would be easier because, yeah. So for I think most admins, they don't really want to mess too much about workspaces. It's a new skill they have to learn. Yeah. It's not a lazy way. Lazy and poor man's method of leveraging API.